Let's take a look at some of the news because it's flying around here today. Trump's Senate trial matters regardless of the outcome, according to the AP. Second impeachment trial of Donald Trump is moving forward. 17 Republicans are required to vote in favor of a conviction, which is not going to happen. Trial is set to begin Tuesday. They're saying it's ultimately a test of whether the president is the presidency could still become too strong. We're going to fly through some of these. Trump lawyers blast the impeachment trial as political theater. We just went through this entire brief, so we don't need to spend much time on this. House impeachment managers filed their own document on Monday, asserting that Trump had betrayed the American people. There's no valid excuse or defense. So let's go into their response. We're going to go through this quickly. It's not long. Jamie Raskin, Deanna DeJet, we got David Cicilline, Joaquin Castro, Eric Swalwell, Ted Lieu, Stacey Plaskett, Madeline Dean, Joe Negussi. So they're responding to what we just saw from Donald Trump. Here it is. You're going to see it's basically a point-by-point response. The House denies each and every allegation in the answer and denies the act's knowledge and wrongful conduct charged against President Trump. They talk about jurisdictions, and you can see a lot of the same language. For the reasons stated in the trial memo, the Senate has jurisdiction. All right, we got it. Then they add a little bit of fluff on there. Presidents swear a sacred oath. There's no January exception. I've seen this come up a lot. January exception, which basically means that a president could abuse their power in the final days without accountability. First Amendment, they're saying, nope, incitement of insurrection was itself a frontal assault on the First Amendment. So by him speaking, that itself was an assault on the First Amendment. His attempted reliance on free speech principles is utterly baseless. We heard that a lot. Word baseless, everything's baseless. They're saying it further asserts that one of his statements was clearly about the need to fight for election security in general. To call these responses implausible would be an act of charity. He says rigged a lot, stolen a lot. Those were false. Ready to fight like hell. Election security in general. Brad Raffensperger to find some votes. A big risk to you, a criminal offense. So they're just going through and basically saying that all of this stuff is not protected speech. The House did not impeach President Trump because he expressed an unpopular political opinion. It impeached him because he willfully incited violent insurrection against the government. So they got to prove that. We live in a nation governed by a rule of law, not mob violence. So if it really is incitement, are they going to even think about the Brandenburg test? Probably not. Dereliction of duty, saying he didn't respond appropriately. We went through that a lot last week. Due process of law, multiplicity. They're saying it describes a single course of conduct constituting an incitement of insurrection, so it doesn't need to be split up. Got it. Conclusion, the evidence of President Trump's conduct is overwhelming. He has no valid excuse or defense for his actions. His efforts to escape accountability are entirely unavailing. Therefore, there's no doubt this conduct is unacceptable. They're going to move forward. Signed by Jamie Raskin. All right, so how is this going to work next week or this week, actually, starting tomorrow? We'll see. Trump's defense team looks like they're going to show clips of violence. They're going to include videos of Democrats encouraging violence. The clips would counter the videos Democrats are going to show. So both sides are going to be playing two movies, essentially. And America is just going to suffer as a result of it. Trump lawyer says on Laura Ingraham, you can count on that when asked about using a video montage. I've been looking at a lot of video these last couple days, he said. You better be careful what you wish for. Trump's primary defense at trial, however, will be the lack of jurisdiction. We saw that today. Mark Meadows is saying that he foresees a bipartisan agreement to quickly end the Trump impeachment trial. I'm not so sure that's going to happen. Mark Meadows expressed confidence the Senate will reach a bipartisan agreement to put a swift end to former President Donald Trump's impeachment trial. Former White House chief of staff exuded confidence that the result will result in an acquittal. Very optimistic we'll find a bipartisan agreement that says, let's get this thing over with very quickly. So I think that's what he's talking about. Yeah, I think both sides want it done quickly. Let's move on to the things that American people are concerned about. It's all political theater. It's really about Democrats trying once again to make a political point, which is something I completely agree with. And then lastly, before we get into a new article of impeachment, we've got Rand Paul on Fox News talking about what he thinks.
Now from Kentucky, GOP Senator Rand Paul. Senator, we'll get to the procedural questions about the Senate trial that I know you're concerned about in a moment. But first, you just heard Liz Cheney. Does President Trump bear any responsibility for the attack on the Capitol on January 6th?
You know, I opposed the notion of, which I think was a misguided notion, of voting to overturn the election either with Congress or with the vice president. But I think if we're going to criminalize speech and somehow impeach everybody who says, oh, go fight to hear your voices heard, I mean, really, we ought to impeach Chuck Schumer then. He went to the Supreme Court, stood in front of the Supreme Court and said specifically, hey, Gorsuch, hey, Kavanaugh, you've unleashed a whirlwind and you're going to pay the price. You won't know what hit you if you continue with these awful decisions. This inflammatory wording, this violent rhetoric of Chuck Schumer was so bad that the Chief Justice, who rarely says anything publicly, immediately said this kind of language is dangerous, as a mob tried to invade the Supreme Court. So if people want to hold President Trump accountable for language, there has to be a consistent standard. And to my mind, it's a partisan farce because they're not doing anything to Chuck Schumer, not doing anything to Representative Omar, not doing anything to Maxine Waters. It's just not fair. It's just partisan politics under a different name.